Okay, it's 5:30. We'll call our meeting to order for Monday, April 22nd. Carl, roll call, please.
Councilmember Remley.
Here.
Ronayne. Lunsman.
Here.
Slate Hansen.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Bunceness.
Here.
Olson. Rux.
Here.
Mayor Leveson.
Here, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we entertain a motion to approve last week's minutes.
Second.
Motion Slate Hansen, second by Rux. If there are no changes, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. We've got two proclamations for today, and appropriately enough, Aaron is here for the Arbor Day proclamation, which annually we like to recognize here. Whereas our city has been blessed with a plentiful number and variety of trees, they've beautified our landscape, added a touch of nature to our towns and cities, provide the locale where people could find wholesome recreation, and served as one of the major building blocks in the development of the nation. Whereas at a time when we as people are becoming more concerned with the quality of environment, it's fitting we give more attention to the planting of trees in rural and urban communities. In crowded city streets or suburban shopping centers, they stand as things of beauty and as reminders of man's inseparable link with nature. So Arbor Day is declared today, by this is April the 26th. Aaron, that's your day, huh?
Last Friday in April.
Yeah. And speaking of urban trees, we still have, thanks to Brett and his development codes, we have more trees gracing our commercial sites than just about any place you'll see around South Dakota, and the difference is really noticeable if you look for it.
I would like to take credit for that, but a lot of that goes to Aaron.
Okay. Well, thanks both. It's a selling point for Aberdeen. Earlier today, Angie from the United Way was here, and she asked us to make the official proclamation that this weekend is Day of Champions Day at Northern State that the United Way coordinates. Started with former council member Tom Agnich and Coach Heupel at Northern, I think, and now they do that. Nearly 180 athletes will do their Day of Champions this Saturday. Angie said there'll be in Ipswich and Westport and Fargo. Some of the things they were going to do, they can't because there's too much water. They can't get to them, but the volunteers will join a day of service and labor throughout Aberdeen. They get a lot of donated food to get them through the day. And donations were given by the United Way, by Northern, the Sertoma Club, Twist Cone, Northwest Energy, Ride Line, 3M, Dakota Bank, and Target. And I know there are a number of other food provider places as well. So that's this Saturday. If you see those Northern folks around, that's what they're doing. So that brings us to the open forum, and Paul McDonald is here, now in his retirement years. What's it been? 6-8 months, Paul? 4?
Going on 3
Finding
years.
stuff to do?
I am.
This is one of them, huh? So you're here to update us on things happening with the library boards.
Yes, thank you. The big question was, should the library be open on Sundays? And so we communicated with you and our trustees and our patrons and the general public in a variety of ways, and we used the winter months as a test period to see if we could get beyond our discussion of I want, I wish, I hope. And so we collected data, and we're here to report that to you. So over the winter months in this particular reporting period, I should let you know, this is Shirley Arment from the library. You know her as well. She's my coach and my support in all of this as well. The reporting period is 12/1 to 3/10, and on a typical weekday when we're open 9 to 9, we'll have about 400 to 500 guests. So call it 450, split the difference. If you put that into perspective and break it down on an hourly basis, we have about 38 guests an hour in the library. So during our test period of Saturdays and Sundays, on Saturdays we averaged 265 guests, and that is 44 guests an hour, so it's a little heavier than during the week actually. On Sunday, our average attendance was 141, so that's about 35 guests an hour from noon to 4. And so you can see the traffic, we're pretty efficient even on weekends. We also surveyed our patrons, and here's what we found out. Of 93 guests participated, about a third, 32% preferred that we be open on Sundays from 1 to 5. 20% preferred Saturday hours of noon to 4. 8% preferred the library be closed on Sunday. There was some anecdotal feedback to the staff that whatever we do, let's be consistent. You know, so you just want to know if you're going to go to the library, you don't have to drive up to the window and guess, are they open now or not? So we wanted to make sure that we had a consistent plan for them. Why do they come to the library? 35%, a little over a third, are there to pick up materials. 17% come in to do recreational reading. 12% use computers. And then less than those categories use a variety of things at the library, like Wi-Fi, study room use, attend a program on weekends, use archives, use the copy machine, visit an exhibit, or have just a peaceful place to write. And so that was interesting and helpful to learn. The Saturday morning children's story time nearly doubled in this winter compared to years in the past. So whether that was just part of the momentum of having full 7-day service, the wicked winter, you need something to do, or what, and I would commend our team and our staff for what they do with story time. And it was just really nice to see that influx of families and kids to come to the new library. Also, as a point of reference on a grand scale, if you look at the K.O. Lee Aberdeen Public Library compared to statewide landscape, according to the 2018 fiscal year South Dakota Library Survey, the K.O. Lee Aberdeen Public Library enjoys nearly double the state average of library visits per capita at 8.3 versus 4.7. And that statistic is an indicator that the public has a high awareness level of the services that our library provides. So that's really kudos to the whole community for building it, and they did come and they are using it. So here's our recommendation and really the crux of why we're here this evening. Based on the data, again, versus personal wishes and wants, and we put all that conversation aside, let's just look at the data. The library leadership, Shirley and her team, and the Board of Trustees unanimously recommends proceeding with summer weekend hours of noon to 4 Saturday, noon to 4 Sunday, between Memorial Weekend and Labor Day weekend as a continuation of our data gathering process. And because of those Monday holidays on the bookends, the actual summer weekend hours would be in effect from Saturday, May 1 through Sunday, August 25th. And then following this summer period, we again will analyze, report, and recommend a permanent year-round operating schedule for the library to the trustees and then subsequently to you, the city commission. That way we will have 12 full months of what do the patrons want, how are they using it, how's the staff dealing with it, and how does that fit into Shirley and your budgets. So we think we have a good plan, we've got good feedback, and our recommendation is solid.
Paul, just for a point of reference, am I correct in saying that the current Saturday hours are 10 to 2, so that go 12 to 4, Sunday is 1 to 5, and that go 12 to 4?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
We're listening to patrons, they want a consistent hours. And we think too, I know this winter was hard to visualize this, but if you can recall, sometimes the hottest part of the day is like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So some folks without air conditioning might find respite at the library. It's just a cool place to take the kids and get away from the heat. So that's why versus 10 to 2, it just made some sense to just be solid noon to 4 and help the families who don't have that convenience.
Well, I would just let the council ask questions, but I would first, like to thank the Shirley and your employees. I know people would love to have a day off, and nobody likes to work weekends if they don't have to. But if that's what we need to do to make use of that $8 million building, then I appreciate the fact that you've come to that conclusion. So, any comments from the council?
Yeah, I guess, I appreciate the information. I mean, this is what we all should be doing to determine whether we should have open hours, no matter who it is. And so you're leading the way. So there's no budget impact for this summer hours, but you envision that you're coming back to us before the budget to ask for additional people? Or, now, this is not going to end until right before September. Our budget is almost completed at that point in time.
Actually, with the part-time money that we got, we have part-time people. We assigned part-time supervisors on the weekend, so we've been able to do it with part-time people. They're doing an excellent job, and we can do it with the money we have.
Okay.
If we get the same amount for next year, I think we can keep this going without having to increase
Oh,
the budget.
great. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, to your point about maybe it being a hindrance for some of us to think about working weekends, it's also become an opportunity for some to find jobs on the weekend when they have school and other
Good.
obligations during the week. And this has expanded their opportunity as well.
Okay. Anything else
you.
from anyone? Everybody's happy with what you're doing then. Thank you. Next on our agenda is old business. We have had this before us for a number of weeks, the ordinance relating to the emerald ash borer. We needed to bring it back for a possible final adoption tonight because there were significant changes made at second reading. And I'll ask Ron to say what he needs to say before we entertain a motion.
All right, thank you. Mr. Mayor, as Mr. McDonald aptly named you, that's a good one. We'll start using that regularly. After the substantial amendments that were made, I did do a clean version, obviously, and that was included with the agenda packet for everyone to see. I should inform the council that that was not sent out to the tree services, and I apologize for that. But we do have a clean copy of the amendment, or the ordinance as amended at second reading on there, and after, and I did receive no comments during the week, so administration recommends approval for final adoption.
Second.
Motion Slade Hansen, second by Rux. Questions, comments, or further amendments?
I don't have any amendment. I wish I did, but if I wish we could accommodate the providers of firewood in the county. I think that's the biggest difference in what we had been talking about. But I'm not sure how we, without getting really into the weeds, how we distinguish between who's in the county and who's bringing this wood in from outside of the county. So I don't have any amendment. I appreciate Mr. Miller and the people that have spoken, because this has been a healthy discussion, which I wish all of our ordinances could go this way, because I think there was a lot of good input, and we took that. We didn't get all the way, but I think we're pretty successful. I do have a question though regarding Aaron, when we discover this bug, how long do you estimate that it will take before our ash trees will be eliminated?
Well, we estimate 4 to 5 years before it spreads through the entire city. You could say another 5 to 8 years to lose them all. So, 10 to 15 years, you'll lose them all.
So have you thought about if we were to allow firewood within a period of time between October 1st, not up to the limit, but October 1st to April 30th, or April 1st, what would that do for the time frame?
Well, if it depends if potentially infested wood is brought in, and if it's not removed, depending on where it's placed throughout the community, you're just creating new pockets of emerald ash borer. So it could go from spreading throughout the entire city from 4 to 5 years down to, much, much less. So it's hard to say. It just depends if people are going to dispose of it, where do they take it, and do they even care if they have a little stack of firewood next to their garage? Are they really going to do something with it? before that time frame.
Okay.
I don't think they will. I think they're just gonna forget about it, and when the weather warms up, they're on to other things.
Thanks.
Okay. 15 years, huh? So
I hope.
for
that
my
we-
ash trees, so it'll be a question of who lasts longer, me or my trees, right?
For some, yes.
Yeah. Other questions or comments on the final adoption? If not, we have a motion and a second for final adoption. Carl?
Councilmember Remley.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Slate Hansen.
Aye.
Johnson. Bunceness.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Leveson.
Aye, motion carries. Thanks, Aaron, and
Thanks.
thanks again, Mr. Miller, for your input. We're all much better educated about this than we were a month ago. Item 6 on our agenda would entertain a motion to approve the A through E items of routine city business consent calendar.
Move approval. Second.
Motion Ruck, second by Lunsman. Questions on any of them? Carl?
Councilmember Rux.
Aye.
Olson.
Oh, I guess we didn't need a roll call.
You caught me off guard, Mayor. Thanks.
All right, let's just do a roll call. I was thinking,
Okay.
all in favor of approving those, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. I didn't want to get us out of here too early, so. I don't have anything to do. Item 7 under new business, this is the appointed time for a hearing on an on-off sale malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license for Crown LLC doing business as Danger Von Dempsey's Pizzeria and Brew House. And this is at 1023 South Main. I presume there's nobody here to speak in opposition.
Move approval.
Motion Remley, second by Slade Hansen. Questions from the council? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. And the next item B is the application for a community event permit. Possible approval for the permit is for the Journey Home event coming up this weekend.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion Johnson, second by Bunceness. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. And I presume all are still welcome to participate in that if they haven't signed up yet, so. Item C, you've been provided a list of bills for payment, and I would entertain a motion to pay those.
Moved.
Second.
Motion Bunceness, second by Johnson. Questions on any of them? Carl?
Councilmember Rux.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Slate Hansen.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Remley.
Aye.
Mayor Leveson.
Aye, motion carries. Maybe we should start before the city manager's report to get an updated report on the tower that fell down at,
Actually, that's
or is that,
within my
oh,
report.
oh, you're way ahead of me. All right, go ahead.
Okay, I actually have 3 items this evening. I got pictures of some of the high-profile needed repairs on city properties. In addition, I'd like to discuss problems with the public safety facility. So the first one, Robin, do you want to take off and talk about your needed repair on 8th Avenue in South Washington, which I made reference to in my last city manager's report?
Okay, what we have is a sanitary sewer, large sanitary sewer that serves a pretty good chunk of town. That took a lot of dirt from this particular intersection. This is a chicken or the egg story. What happened first? Did the storm sewer fail first, or did we start having some hole on the top of the sanitary sewer? Start allowing some of this soil to subside, and then it caused the storm sewer to drop out. It's a good question. We'll never know for sure, but we do know that this is a junction of a 48-inch pipe, a 60-inch pipe, and a 78-inch pipe, along with a 24-inch pipe underlying it. And so this whole intersection will be look very different here in a couple days. But we've got a lot of repair work to do. I have submitted this to Brown County as one of our flood-related expenses, and we may get some reimbursement out of it if things go right. But the bottom line is we've got to get things put back together. So
What I'd like to highlight in this picture, if you look to what would be the south part of the hole, that was not dug out. That was actually washed out with the velocity of the storm sewer that came through the 60-inch pipe. If I show you some additional photos, you really can't see it, but kind of in the center, where the concrete and the dirt are together, that is a manhole structure holding up the rest of the street that is totally by itself.
You can see the manhole cover there, yeah.
Yeah, you can see the manhole cover with the X, and we expect that to collapse probably this evening. So we'll even have a
We
video.
have started bypass pumping that just in case it does collapse, so.
So how far does the dirt get down? And what do we have to do to extract that, or is it just going to take care of itself?
Well, we'll dig part of this out, and they put cages in there for safety for the workmen. We will have to dig all the way down to that sanitary sewer pipe, put new pipe in underneath, and then we're gonna do flowable fill underneath the, which is instead of having to do compaction for the dirt underneath the pipes, we'll do flowable fill. So we'll assure that this will not settle after we get done. When you get into 17-foot depths on sanitary sewer, it's very likely that something is gonna subside at some point in time. So it'll be a little more expensive, but we can assure ourselves a little better chance of success on it.
So this sanitary sewer took in dirt.
Correct.
How far does that reach down? I mean, do we have to go an extended distance to make sure that we're removing?
No,
How
we'll,
does this work?
the dirt that's been taken in, Peggy has been pulling out
Okay.
for the last 2 weeks. So she was pulling out a ton or more per hour of gravel, sand type materials in the last week. Before that, it was mud, and it was so bad that she couldn't treat it. So that went into the ponds to settle out. So
So it flushes through.
it flushes through the system, and actually all the pipe downstream is all lined. Had we lined one more block of pipe, maybe we wouldn't have taken in as much dirt. You know, it's there again. This is where we stopped because we would have had to do the bypass pumping would have had to go through 6th Avenue, and DOT was not going to let us set up piping through the highway. So,
But one of the things that we need to discuss also is in 2011, we did the extensive storm sewer evaluation, and remember, Robin always make reference to we couldn't find any smoking guns. However, we thought it was just some small areas here and there. We have reduced our inflow and infiltration to the sewer treatment plant substantially in the last 5 years. And if in fact this was probably a weak area where because of the spring collection, it kind of exposed itself.
and that is truly one thing that we do find. Every time we end up with an event like this, you find the weakest spot in your system. And we found a number of them in 2007, 2011. And, you know, we're fortunate to have less this time. Honestly, this is the only real one that we've had exposed so far, and we
So-
hope this is it.
But it's not as though we weren't paying attention too, because he televises the sewers, so we're looking at them on a regular basis. It's just, like you said, it became a weak link because of the pressure of the most recent meltdown.
So we had no injuries with this event.
You know, our guys came up with it long before the pavement even started to settle or anything. They found it ahead of that time. So, yes, if you want to call a collapse of a system a success story, this is about as good as it gets, I guess.
So yeah, that was my question. It was noted in the newspaper that way, but I wanted to make sure that that was very clear, that we had found this, we had already wrote this off or had the warning signs around it. We knew that collapse was coming, and we had already contracted or hired someone to come in and fix it before it started to collapse. Correct. Okay. All right. I think that I think that that's important for folks to know, that this didn't just catch us off guard and have a collapse. We knew that there was a problem there, and we were working to fix it.
You know, immediately, you know, after the flooding or the higher water levels had started, that's typically where we're going to see some of these things show up. And when Peggy started seeing mud, we knew we had something we needed to go look for. That's a telltale sign. So.
Okay, moving on to the second item. You're all aware of the Folsom Light Tower. Here's some pictures. showing the damage of the tower and to the building. It's unfortunate, but we just reshingled that building last year. I talked to Doug. The structural engineer should be in tomorrow, as well as the city's insurance company is going to review the situation. Hopefully, we can get it fixed before May 24th, because that's at that point where then they start utilizing the field on a regular basis. We've already contacted Musco Lighting. They're putting together a proposal for us. We do not have any definite numbers at this time. We hope to have them tomorrow, but we are working at it as fast as we can. And like you had indicated, there was no injuries involved. There was property damage. They believe that the tower fell because there was rust at the bottom where it joins into the concrete. And that's why we hired a structural engineer to come in and check the other 7 structures to make certain that they're not in the same situation as this one that collapsed.
Okay, that it?
Okay, that's it. Okay, moving on. The last item is the public safety facility. And it is approximately 10 years old at this point. And with the age, it's experienced some deficiencies. And the electrical lines that run into the facility are at ground level grade, which exposes them to constant moisture. And unfortunately, that moisture follows the lines and goes down to the fuse box. And so this is the second time this happened, and you can kind of see the water lines coming down the conduit there. Well, they actually fall within the conduit too, that goes down to the fuse box. And then I'll show you a picture of the fuse box right there. That brown, black area is the burnout, what happened when it went down to the fuse box just about a week ago. With that fuse box burning out, then the generator's supposed to kick in. And that's the second problem. This generator was manufactured in the 1980s, and it was formerly used for the water treatment plant. And unfortunately, over a 10-year period since we utilized this generator, we spent approximately $35,000 in various different repairs, and it still isn't reliable. So in effect, with these most recent problems, I would like to contact the electrical engineer to draft a replacement specifications for the generator for your consideration at a later time. Also have them draft some specs to create a dry well where we can put a sump pump in to keep the water away from the line so we don't experience this in the future. We were fortunate to have that used generator, but it's actually oversized for what we need within the police fire facility. The one in City Hall that serves City Hall as well as the fire department is 255 kW. The present one that's over in that police building right now is 500 kW. And I contacted the electrical engineer and said, hey, can you do a calculation and tell me what we really need in this building? And we only need a 300 kW. So ultimately, by replacing it, I think the operational costs will be a lot less just from fuel perspective, but I think we would have a reliable backup. And you want to make any comments to that, Jay? I appreciate you coming over. It's unfortunate, but the chief's at a municipal league function, and Jay came over, and I know he works with this on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's been an issue for several years. Either last time we tried to test it, the batteries actually blew up while we were in there. It was quite loud. The fuel tank wasn't large enough to run more than maybe a day at most if it had to fully operate the whole building. At this time, when it went out this last time, it was only operating our heating system. So we were without heat for a night. Didn't get too cold in there, so it was okay. But had it run on full capacity, that tank to fuel this current generator wouldn't last a day, the amount of gas it would take. We had to actually, during the storm, get diesel from the city because the people that supply our diesel couldn't get here from Britain. That's where it comes from. So it creates a lot of problems with, like the manager said, the reliability. We need to have that running. Had we lost power outside of what we had, we would have been without power. The generator would not have run. So it's been on and off again for many years now. So it's just a fact. We gotta change swap them out somehow.
One of the things I'm going to do when I ask them to draft a spec for replacement is I'm going to have it done under 2 options. One option would be to pull this motor out, which may require some building modifications, and replace it with a new one. Or the second option would be to take the new motor and build it into the boulevard, so then we don't have to intrude within the building structure to replace it because this motor's huge and the only place that it can be pulled out of is actually where the vent is for the radiator, which is up front. And I don't know if that's big enough to actually get that motor out of there. And so I thought if we did an optional repair, we could find out what might be most cost effective for us.
Okay.
That's all I have at this time.
Yeah.
Bearer of bad news tonight.
Those of us that were around when we built that still think of it as a new building. It's 10,
right,
10 years.
right.
You know, but,
What were we thinking about
Time-
that generator? I
time
don't know.
flies. Yeah. Do you have something additional?
Yes, I would just like an update on airport water. Where are we at with that
I
process?
talked to Rich
Contract.
last Thursday, and he estimated that by the middle of this week, there shouldn't be any water left in any of the detention ponds.
So if we started talking to the county about maybe modifications to the agreement, or how we can handle the next event better than we did this last time?
I would say that the last meeting we had with them, they were open to that discussion, but I've been assembling some data so that we can go in with maybe some things other than water on roads.
Right.
Which is very subjective and
Right.
arbitrary may not be the right term, but it's fairly subjective on your criteria. So we do have some elevations we'll look at and some flow characteristics that they may be able to incorporate, which may help us.
So do we ever look at other options that the city can take this into their own hands without having to ask the county? I understand their position with the people in the watershed. The watershed, that map, it's a huge area. And so I don't, but is there any other, we should be looking at other options, whatever they may be, so we don't have to, we can handle this on our own. Now, there'll be a cost to that, but I think this council would then have to make that determination.
I completely agree with you, Dave, and I actually recently had a brief conversation with Rich, ran into him in the community, and kind of said the same thing, that I think that we should look at ways we can work on this on our own. Not that we don't want to work with the county, we always want that, but ways that we can just handle our own situation on our own as much as possible. When we have an emergency, we need to be able to act. So.
I was really surprised. Rich gave us a list of people, private people that use the airport, very ag-based, flying in multiple times in the month. This is an important issue for this region, and so we don't want to jeopardize anything with the feds either. So.
Well, we're very fortunate. We have inspection. I can't remember if it's middle of this week or in the middle of next week, but by the time we have the inspection, the detention pond should be empty.
Okay. Any schedule on the Third Avenue Bridge?
Well, they started demolition last Friday on it, and I think the contractor's just itching to get this thing done. So they're going to work very aggressively on trying to get it done. Probably the biggest challenge is how high the water is right now and what that's going to mean for building their cofferdams and doing some of the stuff underneath the structure at this point. But they're working hard on the demolition, and unfortunately I didn't get over there today to take a look at what kind of progress they'd made. But I expect them to work very hard on it to be aggressive and be done more quickly than what the original schedule contemplated.
I forgot about one other fact that you might find interesting, and I didn't break it out as far as 2018 and 2019, but through the winter of 2018, 2019, we had 13 declared events.
And what's the average?
5.
5. It was a big winter.
5 is what we budget for, right? Yeah. Okay, you're all done then. Anything else before we adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second that.
Motion Bunsen, second by Johnson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.